Hello, friends. Welcome back to Fenny for the Soul. So, as you can see from my outfit, it's a Northeast India story. We will be meeting Sanjoy Hazarika, the award winning journalist and author, and we'll be talking about his wonderfully researched book, Strangers No More. In this book, he writes extensively about all the eight Northeast states. So, if you have not read the book, you must grab a copy. In this interview, we will focus on Nagaland, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh for sure, and some other interesting topics. So sit back and enjoy the interview. Hi Sanjoy, welcome to Goa, and especially welcome to our home and my study. In fact, thank you for this honor.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Sanjoy. So, I'm going to kick off this interview by asking you, your fascinating book, Strangers No More, 2018 book. You have mentioned how the youth from the Northeast have slowly and steadily mainstreamed themselves by, seeking education and jobs across India. Is this trend only growing?
Yeah, it's growing because you see it in not just in the metros, but in the big metros, but in the smaller towns as well. And they're moving for a variety of purposes, as you know. And I wouldn't say that they're mainstreaming themselves. I would say that they're engaging. They're continuing to engage and migrate in the pursuit of fulfilling their aspirations, making a life, developing professions, developing skills, using their skills and abilities to the best way they can. But the numbers continue to grow. In the reverse direction, what you do have, interestingly, is at least some people from the region who've lived abroad or lived in other parts of India are coming back to start startups, work in different fields, bring their skills to bear locally. So that's also an interesting development and phenomenon.
Wonderful, wonderful. I wanted to ask you, despite people from Northeast India excelling in sports, music, films, and academics, just four broad areas that I have identified, mainstream India still knows little about the Northeast, and how can this change?
Well, I think it will be a long, drawn-out process. We from the region also need to understand that we have to continue engaging. We can't sort of withdraw and be dismissive. I see that in Assam, as we speak today, Goa's had major flooding and not hurricanes, at least storms over the past few days. Assam has more than 2 million people underwater displaced. 70 people have died. So those are what we call national problems, and I don't think there's as much interest in that or as much focus on that as there could be, and that needs to be, for instance, the media needs to focus on it better. People need to reach out. That's one. But the other thing is to do the kind of things that you do, which is to engage, to converse, to spread the word through your own work and your social media networks. That's one. I think there is more knowledge about the region than perhaps there was some years ago. And that is partly not just because people are moving, so it's a two-way process. People are moving out, they're spreading at least some information and knowledge about their area and the work that they do and the people where they're from and their communities and so on. But also there's a lot of writing which is taking place. Young writers, non-fiction and fiction, mainly fiction, poetry, are coming out and making a mark. And a lot of people read still, not just the daily news, but long form essays, fiction, collections and so on. So that I think is something that's... Plus I think food.
Interestingly.
Northeast cuisines, at least various things are known, and you've got India's Got Talent, not India's Got Talent, what is that? the
MasterChef.
MasterChef India,
Yeah, yeah.
I think has got 2 or 3 major winners from the region, from
Wow.
Assam and from Garo Hills in the last 2 years.
Very good.
So these things are the new ways of keeping people informed with what they're interested in. People are always interested in food and so on.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Sanjoy, my family visited Manipur last year, 2023 March, and just about 45 days after our visit, the trouble broke out, and all the tragedy erupted. A lot of experts have blamed the state government, incumbent state government, for for this, because of that controversial bill, tribal status for Meiteis bill. And what is your take, personal take on this as a journalist?
Well, I think there were many factors, not just one. That happened to be the trigger. But there were a lot of other issues, angst building up on both sides, a lot of prejudice and, shall we say, deep concerns about what the other was doing or purported to be doing. There's all this talk about opium and poppy, illegal immigrants. All these things were coming to a boil. And I think the party in power tried to promote, instead of trying to calm the situation, I think they were promoting this sort of division and feelings of division and bitterness and prejudice. And frankly, the time is now. If we keep looking at the past, you'll never go forward, because it's a very complex and challenging situation, and you really need to both sides really need to pull back, because it's always like on the edge of a precipice. You need to pull back and start slow conversations, meaningful conversations again, because ultimately, we can't change our neighbors. Our neighbors, often I say that you can change spouses and companions and so on, but your neighbor is with you for better or worse.
That's true.
Till death do you part or whatever. And frankly, we both as a nation and as states, we need to live better, know how to live better with each other. Whether it's Assam and another state, or communities within a state such as Manipur or whatever. I think there's a lot of ill will that has been generated. We need to create goodwill again, which is in short supply. And among the first things that any government should do and should have done is rehabilitate the people who have lost their homes and who have lost bread earners, and place them in spaces where they're safe and they don't feel vulnerable. An entire thousands of children, young people, have suffered education loss and psychological trauma, women, men, children, as a result of this on both sides. And people have gone long ways to distance themselves from the situation. I mean, you have a state in which there is a clear dividing line, and has been for over a year now. And how to mend that is the key question. I am not going to posit an answer. I can only say that conversations, not just a big word like dialogue, but small things like conversations and old friendships need to be renewed and rebuilt.
Thank you. Coming to Nagaland, at least to lay people like us, seem to have been chugging along, quite peacefully in recent years. But the recent shutdowns of businesses across the state in protest of, armed extortion by underground groups is disturbing, So what seems to be happening on the ground, Sanjay?
Well, there's always been this taxation, or what those who suffer from it call it extortion, in Nagaland, and especially in Nagaland over the past many decades. So this is not a new thing, but people are speaking out. In the early 2000s, I think there was a combined effort by civil society groups and business people to have a public meetings and speak out against extortion, and that clearly has started again. But I think that part of the story is that within a region, a state like Nagaland, there are many, as you indicated in your question, there are many hidden currents which sometimes emerge as this. I mean, this is just telling us what's lying immediately below the surface, but below that there's also frustration from the ranks of the there's no underground group as such, because everybody is in dialogue. So everybody is open in their different camps, but obviously there is frustration in the ranks about the fact that conversation, discussion, negotiation with the government of India don't seem to be going anywhere, because you had a big announcement about an historic accord in 2015.
Correct.
But it's now nearly 10 years and there is no actual resolution of the problem. You have an accord but no resolution. I don't know how that works, but this is the Nagas are very, very patient and tough people, and they've been waiting for a long time. But some of these issues have been on the table also for a long time.
Yeah.
But you need resolution, and for that you need prioritization by government and a willingness to come to a negotiated settlement.
Perfect. Thank you, Sanjoy. Sanjay, a final question. We were just discussing some time back. China continuously has been laying claim to Arunachal Pradesh, and so what is the sentiment of the people on the ground in Arunachal Pradesh, and how should India tackle China?
Well, India tackling China is a much bigger thing. There are the object in dispute is not just in one state. It runs right along the entire Himalayan belt, wherever we have a border with China, whether it's in Ladakh or elsewhere in Jammu and Kashmir. The whole Karakoram thing, which is given over to Pakistan, that's also a matter of deep concern, and India's never accepted that. And similarly here, I think on the Indian side, in Arunachal Pradesh, there's absolutely a total commitment, to the idea of India, to the need to be here, to the belief that you are Indians, and a real commitment, I think. And the government is trying to meet that commitment by building the kind of infrastructure which should have been in place decades ago. It was very defensive. Now it is being on the offense, as it were, in terms of infrastructure, just as China has been on the offense with building infrastructure right up to the line of actual control. We don't have a border with China, we have a line of actual control, LOAC. In Kashmir and so on, it's the line of control. So, but these are long-term issues. Dealing with China is not a small thing. It is among the we are still a much smaller economy compared to China. We are less powerful in terms of military prowess and so on, but we're getting there. So that's not the area in which we should be competing with them. What has always set aside India is that we are democratic and we are open, and that we can resolve issues with our neighbors and within by conversations. Now, the last elections, I think, have given a boost to that sentiment, And the government needs to be very aware of the fact that people in the region, in the northeastern region, watch its moves very carefully, what people say, what they do, more importantly, and how they're going to talk to China and what are the issues that they will take up. Because there are some non-negotiables which will remain on the table.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sanjoy, for giving us this interview. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you
God
very
bless.
much.